There is a lake sitting at the bottom of the ocean right now. Not a small pool. A full lake with its own shoreline, its own waves, and its own current. And every single animal that has ever swum into it has died within seconds of crossing its edge. In 2014, scientists sent a camera down 3,500 meters into the Gulf of Mexico. They were not looking for a lake. They found one anyway. They filmed the shrimp swimming toward the shoreline. The shrimp crossed the edge, its body locked. It convulsed. It sank. It never moved again. Scientists watched that footage in complete silence. Then one of them said 4 words that ended the silence in that room. What is that thing? Before we talk about what that lake does to living things, we need to talk about what it actually is. Because the science behind it is as impossible as the thing itself. The ocean floor is not flat, empty sand. It is one of the most geologically active surfaces on Earth. Millions of years ago, parts of what is now the ocean floor were dry land. Ancient seas evaporated and left behind massive underground salt deposits buried under layers of rock and sediment. Those deposits are still down there. And in certain places, the geological pressure from the Earth itself slowly pushes that ancient salt upward through cracks in the ocean floor. When that salt meets the seawater above it, something extraordinary happens. It dissolves. But it does not mix. Because the water it creates is so heavy, 3 to 8 times salter than normal ocean water, that it cannot rise. It has nowhere to go. So it pools on the ocean floor. Like rain pooling on concrete after a storm. Except instead of water pooling on land, this is an entirely different body of liquid pooling at the bottom of the ocean. It forms its own surface. A visible boundary between 2 completely different liquids sitting on top of each other without ever mixing. The water above it is normal ocean water. The liquid below that boundary is something else entirely. Denser. Heavier. Deadlier. And it has been sitting there completely undisturbed in some cases for thousands of years. Scientists call it a brine pool, and what makes it a lake rather than just a puddle is what happens when currents pass over its surface. The current pushes across the top of the brine pool the same way wind pushes across the surface of a lake on land. It creates waves. Real waves moving across the surface of a liquid that is sitting at the bottom of an ocean. An underwater lake with underwater waves visible to any camera that gets close enough to see them. This is not a geological accident. This is one of the ocean floor doing something that the ocean floor was never supposed to be able to do. 2014. Gulf of Mexico. 3,500 meters below the surface. A research team from Temple University had sent a remotely operated underwater vehicle into the darkness. Not to find a lake. Not to find anything unusual. They were conducting a routine survey of the ocean floor, looking at geological formations and sediment patterns. The kind of work that produces data nobody outside the scientific community ever reads. The vehicle descended for hours. 3,000 meters. Nothing. 3,200 meters. Nothing. 3,400 meters. Nothing but dark water and empty ocean floor stretching in every direction under the vehicle lights. Then at 3,500 meters the lights hit something that made every person watching the live feed on the surface ship go completely still. A shoreline, not rocks. Not sediment. A shoreline. A visible edge where the ocean floor ended and something else began. A flat mirror-like surface stretching outward from that edge in every direction. Completely still. Completely flat. Reflecting the vehicle lights back upward like a mirror sitting at the bottom of the ocean. The lead researcher watching the feed said nothing for almost 30 seconds. Then she said one sentence, "That is a lake." The team spent the next several hours surveying the edges of what they had found. The brine pool was approximately the size of a large swimming pool. Its edges were sharply defined. Its surface was completely flat except for the occasional gentle wave that passed across it when the vehicle moved nearby. The temperature inside was significantly warmer than the surrounding ocean water, heated from below by geothermal activity in the ocean floor beneath it. And then one of the vehicle operators did something that the footage captures perfectly. He moved the vehicle toward the shoreline and watched what happened when a small shrimp swimming near the edge came into contact with the brine pool surface. The shrimp crossed the boundary. Its legs stopped moving first. Then its body curled. then it sank slowly into the brine pool surface and disappeared below the mirror like liquid. It did not come back up. The room watching that footage went silent again. This time for much longer. That shrimp did not die slowly. It died in a way that makes scientists uncomfortable to describe. Because the mechanism behind it is not one thing happening to a body. It is three separate and completely different things happening to a body at exactly the same moment. And understanding all three of them is the only way to understand why nothing that enters a brine pool ever comes back out. The first thing that happens is called osmotic shock. Your body, and the body of every marine animal, maintains a careful balance of salt inside its cells. That balance keeps cells functioning. The moment a marine animal crosses into a brine pool, the salt concentration outside its cells becomes so dramatically higher than inside its cells that the laws of chemistry take over immediately. Water is pulled out of the animal's cells through the cell walls at a rate that no biological system can compensate for. The cells begin to shrink and collapse. Not over hours. Not over minutes. Within seconds of contact, the cellular structure of the animal begins to fail from the outside in. It is the equivalent of every cell in your body simultaneously losing the water that keeps them alive. At once. With no warning and no way to stop it. The second thing that happens is oxygen deprivation. Brine pools contain almost zero dissolved oxygen. Normal ocean water contains enough dissolved oxygen to support marine life. The brine pool contains essentially none. The moment an animal crosses the boundary, it has nothing to breathe. For a fish or crustacean, this is the equivalent of a human walking into a sealed room with no air whatsoever. The body begins shutting down within seconds. Combined with the osmotic shock already destroying its cells from the outside, the animal has no biological mechanism left to fight with. The third thing is chemical toxicity. Most brine pools contain high concentrations of hydrogen sulfide and methane rising from geological deposits below them. Hydrogen sulfide is the exact same compound that kills human workers in industrial accidents involving sewage and petroleum processing. In the concentrations found inside a brine pool, it disrupts cellular respiration, the process by which cells convert oxygen into energy, at a speed that makes the first two killing mechanisms almost irrelevant. Three separate systems. Activating simultaneously. Within seconds of contact. No venom on Earth works that fast. No predator on Earth kills that efficiently. And unlike a predator, the brine pool does not choose its victims. It kills everything equally. The largest whale that ever swam would die in that pool within minutes for exactly the same reasons that shrimp died in seconds. The only difference would be how long it took. Everything you have just learned says nothing should live near a brine pool. The osmotic shock kills within seconds. The oxygen deprivation kills within seconds. The hydrogen sulfide kills within seconds. Any animal that crosses that boundary dies before it has time to understand what is happening to it, and yet, the shoreline of the Jacuzzi of Despair is one of the most densely populated ecosystems scientists have ever found on the entire ocean floor, not sparse life clinging to existence at the absolute limit of what biology allows. Dense life. Thick colonies of mussels covering every surface of the brine pool shoreline. Tube worms extending upward from the sediment in clusters so thick they look like underwater forests. Crabs moving slowly through those forests. Shrimp gathering in masses so concentrated that the camera footage initially made researchers think they were looking at sediment rather than living creatures, all of them living within centimeters of the boundary that would kill them instantly if they crossed it. The reason they are there is the same reason the brine pool kills everything that enters it. The hydrogen sulfide and methane rising from below the pool, the chemicals that make the interior of the pool lethal, do not stay neatly inside the pool. They seep outward along the edges. Into the sediment surrounding the shoreline. Into the water just above the boundary, and in that zone of chemical seepage lives a specific type of bacteria that does something no other organism on the surface of this planet needs to do. It eats poison. Chemosynthetic bacteria convert the energy stored in hydrogen sulfide and methane directly into food. The same process that plants use with sunlight, photosynthesis, these bacteria perform with toxic chemicals instead. They do not need sunlight. They do not need oxygen. They need the exact chemicals that make the brine pool a death sentence for everything else. Those bacteria become food for the mussels. The mussels become food for the crabs. the crabs become food for larger predators passing through. An entire food chain built on poison. Thriving on the edge of instant death. Getting everything it needs from the thing that would kill it in seconds if it crossed one more centimeter. Scientists studying the mussel beds around the jacuzzi of despair found individual mussels that were over 100 years old. 100 years. Living within centimeters of instant death. For an entire century, the most dangerous place on the ocean floor is also one of the most alive places on the ocean floor. And the reason it is alive is the same reason it is dangerous. The jacuzzi of despair is not alone. Scientists have discovered brine pools in the Gulf of Mexico, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean Sea and the Black Sea. Each one sitting at the bottom of its respective body of water. Each one killing everything that enters it. Each one surrounded by the same dense colonies of life thriving on its poisonous edges.